What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Game Dev Unchained, the number one development podcast about game development and the lifestyle thereof. I am your host, Brandon Pham, and this is a special episode, a Roundtable news episode, and I am bringing the unofficial second host, Ray Graham. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. What's up, Brandon?
All right, so a regular on this segment of the show, and also Jason Lee, a return from previous episodes earlier this year. How are you doing, Jason?
Pretty good. Excited to be back.
Awesome. Well, thank you for spending the time. It's late in the night, but as always, we work from home, so it doesn't matter anymore, including weekends. So I want to thank you both for coming on, and for those who are seeing the title of this episode, we are going to fully discuss about should the industry go fully remote, right? And we'll go off tangent here and there, but I would love to kind of start this discussion because I think it is one of those, this is the year, if anything, that we're going to either start crawling out of this pandemic or slowly seeing what is the next stage for game developers out there. And I would love to kind of hear both of your guys' own personal experience so far within your companies, within your network, and any thoughts whatsoever. So let's go ahead and I'll throw it over to Ray first to kind of get this party started. So you're kind of more used to this, I think, even before we were forcibly going to remote, right? Can you kind of talk about your experience before, during, and what you think will be happening as we transition?
Sure. Yeah. Before a little bit, because I would have, I'd either be traveling a lot or I would have like early morning meetings. So I would have to take the meetings from home or work from home one day a week or a couple days a week. And so that was kind of it wasn't that big of a deal to not be working in the office all the time. But I'll say that now that we're doing it 24/7, it's definitely, it's like we're making it happen and work is getting done and people are remaining productive. But with all the other pressures of what's going on in the world with COVID and everything else that's going on, it really makes working at home even harder for folks. It's definitely a mental health strain. And so it's more than just can you work from home and do remote work? Like right now, everybody's doing it pretty much on hard mode at this point, right? And so it's like even harder to get stuff done or even get the energy to get out of bed to work from home at this time, right? But we're just making it happen, and things are remarkably happening. But still, it's taking a lot of effort for sure.
So Jason, I'm going to throw this question over to you. So we kind of went over this a few episodes ago when we were talking to each other, but I would love to kind of get more insight on that side as well, because to kind of go off of what Ray is talking about, everyone's doing this on hard mode right now. So I would think that once things get easier and people can actually enjoy themselves outside of the home, that it'll be more welcomed. Would you kind of give your little insight of what's happening on your side?
Yeah, so Pixelmatic Studio is based out in Shanghai, but a majority of our senior staff are sort of distributed all around the world, from like France, Vancouver, in Alberta, in some places in the States. So they're really just sort of spread out. So we've been really working remote much before working remote was common with all these game studios. But I have to say, working remote was a lot more enjoyable before the whole COVID crisis, because I was able to sort of integrate more of that sort of go for a quick run and then come home and then, focus on my work. also, the kids are back in school now, but for a while they were sort of staying at home. Schools were closed, so it was also like I have a daughter, so it was also very difficult for me to focus on my work. When she's running around the house making all this noise, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, in that respect, there was a lot of adjustments that needed to be made, but I think for us, we've just, aside from that, just working remote overall, I think it just works for us as a studio. We've had to make some adjustments in how we communicate with each other a lot better. I think that was one of the biggest challenges. Our producers really had to step it up to make sure, work and communication and vision and all that is sort of communicated across all different disciplines, like clearly what they were supposed to do, why we were doing it, and make sure that sort of flowed properly. But that was one of the biggest issues. But other than that, like once we got that resolved, just through sort of creating better processes, working remote, aside from not being able to go out for runs and stuff, has been pretty good for us.
Yeah, I think I kind of sign off on that. I was working remote a little before the pandemic, and my kids are still at home all the time, bothering me. So it is an extra challenge I think parents are facing. I do want to bring up the fact that I believe mid last year, I think the biggest company that had an issue with remote was Netflix, where they kind of straight up and said, this is undoable. We, as soon as we can get back in the office. And to me, that was the Silicon Valley that was the most relaxed before, with vacation forever policies. So it was very surprising to kind of hear their take on it, saying that this is unworkable. And I wonder how many companies where it's not popular to say that are kind of holding back right now. And I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts. We'll go with you first, Jason. Like, what are those worries that you think, or insights that you feel that might be an issue where not a lot of companies are all in and really looking forward to going back in the office?
So one of the challenges we had early on was to communicate passion and sort of vision. It's a lot easier to do that, communicating energy to your team, how excited you are, like what it is you're building in a very short period of time when you're sort of all grouped together in a meeting room, right? Trying to verbalize vision and creativity is one of the hardest things to do. and trying to make sure that's communicated properly to somebody else, right? So we had to create different processes to do that properly. And I would say that if you're not used to working remote, that is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges. It's going to feel like you're running up against a wall because, people that are supposed to take your cue and, produce work from it are probably going to have a very difficult time.
Yeah, definitely. And Ray, I would want to ask the same kind of question, you becoming the programmer. I mean, Jason is like always the designer and they always have to talk all the time. Do programmers is a lot more straightforward? Here's my code, leave me alone. I mean, what kind of problems are you seeing being manager of global teams and issues with that?
I would usually say, I'm just going to refute your first comment.
Yeah.
And say that programmers actually do talk to each other.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And especially when your team is global or cross-functional, talking across teams becomes like super important. So communication is definitely a thing that has to still be tight, even for engineers, Mr. Pham.
I had no idea. I thought you guys just writing code all the time. All right.
No, but yeah, no. So that's still a thing that we have to worry about and deal with, especially in my position where I'm dealing with multiple teams across multiple time zones. It's communication is something that is very important, and these days it's very hard. The one thing that I didn't think I would be missing is what Jason was kind of alluding to before, being able to convey passion and to say, and it's a lot easier to convey your emotions and stuff when you're in person, seeing each other in a meeting room, talking altogether. And then over Zoom, something's just lost. And then on top of everything else that's going on, it's even harder to keep that energy up, I would say. And so it's like I'm experiencing those same kind of issues right now.
So like a lot of these issues do you think it's just over time, you guys feel over time it's going to find solutions through practice, through better programs, through better Slack upgrades or whatever, right? Or is it just one of those things that, at least for me, like I'm finding the same thing. It's like usually something that would be easily explained by turning around in my chair and talking to a person. I would have to over explain like 5 times as much just to make sure that there isn't any miscommunication. Is this something that can be resolved over time, or is it just something that it's just communication online? You get to over communicate to kind of compensate for things. So Jason, I'll ask you first.
Yeah, I mean, for us, what I decided to try and do, and that it seems to work, or at least have been working so far, was to approach every sort of sprint or scrum meetings in the same way as if I was there in person, with the same level of energy, right? And I have to like consciously push myself to do that, like be the cheerleader, because they're looking at me, right? They're looking at me and they're believing in my vision that what we're making is great. So I have to make sure every time I'm there to sort of talk about my vision, I'm there to excite them, right? And I have to make that extra effort to do that. So those simple things like that, I think were things that we had to change. Also, some production processes, I think we also had to change in the way we break apart vision, and in ways that we sort of visualize, like people, like again, like communicating vision through words is one of the hardest things to do in the world, where people understand exactly what you want to create, what's in your mind, right? So you have to do other things where you like do concept art. And I mean, when I'm communicating with programmers, to be honest, that's a lot easier, because I find that engineers just it's either like there's a specific answer to things, right? Whereas when I'm trying to communicate with artists, it's a lot harder, because
how do you feel about it though?
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's about tone. There's tone and feel, but then there's also how they perceive what you're trying to say. It might be different than what you're thinking, right? So taking that into account and taking the time to take more time to sort of plan out and make sure they understand what you're trying to do. You have to spend more time in that process before you get into, okay, let's just break apart and do the work. It's not so. I don't think that sort of you can't approach it in the same process as you do in the office space, right? You really need to take the time to make sure everybody understands how to approach things.
So this question goes back to you, Ray, like being the tech guy who is seemingly easier to talk to, I guess, online than I am. I don't know how true that is, but I'll take Jason's word for it. There are obviously some challenges as well, right? I mean, being a manager, you're constantly before making sure that everyone's on the same page. Right now, you're just constantly more in meetings. And then is there an adverse effect to that? Just being always in meetings, communicating? Have you found a balance? What has worked and what hasn't worked? I mean, I'm sure there was some kind of trial and error at first, right?
Yeah, I guess. And I think my main thing that we've had to deal with, or I've had to change, is every communication, every follow-up is a meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Like some conversations that would just happen organically when you're in the office. Now it's like, oh no, I have to book time.
Yeah.
To talk to that person about this thing. Right. Because now I have no chance of seeing them. Right. Mm-hmm. And I have no chance of seeing what they're doing, or I can't just drop in at their desk. Right. So now it's serious meeting fatigue, because of all of these meetings I have to get booked to follow up on things and know when something's happening. So that's the one thing that I've definitely had to have changed, and also making the conscious effort to do that, because again, it's not an organic thing where you just see a person, be able to talk to them, see how they're doing. You actually have to go out of your way and really say, hey, no, I need to spend time with each individual person to see how they're doing and see where things are going.
Yeah, and I'll leave this on you, Ray, before turning this over to Jason. So being at home all the time, there's a whole, as managers, mental component, mental morality, not morality, but just keeping morale, what do you call it? Just office morale up as a manager. Now that everyone's like locked in the homes, and of course that affects work. So therefore it affects you as a manager to manage that person. Are you guys finding in situations where you kind of have to be like checking in more than often, doing more than you were signed up to do before, as kind of like part-time therapist, to make sure that everything at home is good? Or is it just one of those things that we're just learning as we're going? Because as you guys can imagine, people are kind of like stressed out aside from work to do work. Would love to kind of hear your thoughts about that, Ray.
No, I think as a manager, you have to do that regardless.
Yeah.
Right. And now in this situation, you have to be extra mindful of it. Right. So it's not like something new I'm doing, or you always care about the well-being of the team and the mental health and all that and how everything's going. But when you know that there's pressures are ratcheted up at this point now, you just have to be extra diligent with following up on that and make sure that folks are in the right mindset.
Yeah. I'll ask more specifically, because some contractors, some employees are parents. And then like Jason and we kind of suffered through the that variable, I would say. So what kind of breaks are we giving to parents, even though we have deadlines? Obviously there are adjustments there, I'm assuming, for scheduling to accommodate for that, but how do you see that being a long-term thing, where this could be a long-term thing with parents stuck with kids for a long time, and still having to hit the same deadlines as others?
Is that for me?
Yeah, I'll throw it back to Jason real quick, and then I'll let Ray kind of sit on that. answer.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we don't like what's that, drive due dates. It's more of the person working on what they need to do. Gives us the amount of time it's going to take that person to do what they need to do, right, for the work. Yeah. So I mean, it's different depending on everybody. Working at home, I mean, personally, I actually do more work, I found, in that respect, that when I work from home, and I get more stuff done than when I was in the office, maybe due to the fact that there's less travel time. I think I spent about 2 hours just traveling back and forth from work all the time. So I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to wear.
Yeah.
That too.
Just a good shirt from now on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also it's like I can take, mini breaks here and there at any time, and then I can work throughout the night if I like. It just, I just find that I work not because, unlike when I was working in an office where, it's time to go to work and it's time to go home, to fill in those hours. I just work because I'm at home, and in some ways maybe it's not too good because I spend too much time working because of that. But I don't think that's a problem with us, and I haven't heard that's a problem with anybody in our studio. And plus, they sign up for their own work. We never really pressure them in trying to make sure they get it done by, like, you need to get this done by this date. We get them to own up, basically, how long is it going to take you to do it? Okay, then you own it, right?
Yeah. So I think before I throw this back to Ray, I would like to ask, just as a general feel of the industry, as there are more people there are certain people that can do more work just based on their lifestyle. If they're single and they can do it and they have all the time in the world versus parents, or especially in this time. I wonder if that ever will play a big factor as this extends in the hiring process and as managers. It's like, does that play? Doesn't have to be your opinion or one that reflects your company or anything. I just want to see, realistically, does that affect us as game developers? If I know for a fact that non-parents may have more ability to kind of take care of things if I have like this tight 3 to 6 month deadline to hit, is the question I'm kind of getting at. Yeah.
That's illegal, Brandon.
I know it's illegal, but there's other ways. Again, I'm not asking for what you guys do for your personal company, but I'm just saying it is a thought. It's a lot.
It's flat out illegal. It's like there's no thinking about that. Right?
Okay.
Like, that's just not right, not moral, and also illegal. So,
well, I hope everyone is legally going about it right. But it is one of those things that I do hear, at least through friends that are not through our own industry, where their peers are able to kind of get the work done, and then they are kind of like struggling behind because they are parents. So at least as parents, I am hearing from parents working through the pandemic that's not necessarily in the game industry, but I feel like it is a mark against them, for reasons that are not their own.
No, well, like right now, if your kids are home, you're going to get less done if you're a parent.
Yeah.
Right. And at least how we approach that is when the COVID started and folks were expecting things to be done on a certain deadline, the answer was like, well, that thing may not be shipped at this date because so-and-so has kids at home, and that's going to impact the amount of output that they can do.
Yeah.
Right. Like, is this something that you have to take into account when doing the estimates for time? And so then you cut scope. You do less in the time that you have because you understand that folks are in these precarious positions. Right. And then there's other people that have no kids at home at all, or not married, or are single. Yeah, they could do a lot of work, but after 12 months of being in your house alone, that also has a mental toll on people, and those folks would also get less work done too, if their mental health is being affected, right? So I think it's affecting everybody, like across the board. I think people are working more, like what Jason was saying. I'm working more because like I don't have to commute as well. It is absolutely terrible that people are working more, but then also because of all of this, people are also being less productive due to all the other extra pressures.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So I kind of, unless Jason, you have something to add to that.
Oh, I mean, I do. I remember some of my friends with, not working remote, when they were working in the office, that they intentionally stayed late. So they actually worked harder because they didn't want to go home.
Yeah. It is an escape. I would say that because before I went full remote, right, before the pandemic, it is nice to kind of have that break, or at least physically have a separation from work from home. Just like most people during the pandemic, I built a gym in my garage, right? Because the gyms are all closed. Yeah. And I find it very funny that immediately if my wife has an errand, she can just walk into the gym and tell me. Whereas when I was at the gym, it would be like, I'll be back in an hour. So those little instances I see is piling up, where overall, super happy that I have this opportunity. But yeah, there are those little things. There's like, especially as a family man, you do appreciate those isolation moments where you are yourself to concentrate on something that I think it is a byproduct of, yeah, this is great, but there was some great moments in the office too, just being focused. I don't know, Ray, if you can relate. I'm sure you like office time, right?
I don't actually. I like that part of it. I'm not missing the office at all.
Okay.
I miss seeing people and talking to people that I work with, but
exactly.
But I don't miss. I'm not like at the office to escape home. right? In my case, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you like home. I think we all are forced to like home as well. I think also, I would love to kind of touch a point. One of the biggest concerns in game development, I felt like there was a huge resistance, especially from bigger companies, outside of Ray and his company. There was very few companies that were open to people just like, yeah, just stay home, do the work. I'll see you later. More companies were against that for the fact that for some reason there's a negative connotation with game developers being lazy for some reason, right? But I think it's way opposite of the fact. Like you said, Jason, I think most game developers who are professional or are senior, who likes getting their work done and are proud of it, are getting their work done and actually are spending more time at home focusing on work. I wonder if any of that remnants, if that have been completely squashed, and how you guys feel about if there are certain companies that are wanting to get back to the office as much as possible. I would love to kind of explore that conversation with you guys. Ray, since you're on, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I'll just say in my experience, it's not the laziness connotation that is the issue, right? Most game companies, there's two issues. I think one of them is security. Yep. Right. So a lot of the bigger game companies are super paranoid about security and the security of their assets and the IP. And then I won't name any names, Ubisoft, but there's others that are even more paranoid about that stuff. Right. And then the other part of it is like folks just think, making a video game is a creative endeavor, and being able to bounce ideas off people real time that are sitting right next to you is better than doing it remotely. And so for those two reasons, I think are the major reasons why folks don't want to embrace working from home 24/7, like game companies, right?
Yeah. How about you, Jason? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with Ray. I think the best world is sort of where, you can sort of mix the two, where, they're so in those sort of moments when you need to sort of pass around vision, pass around energy, like once a week or something, you arrange something where you guys all get together and sort of have that conversation. But at the same time, I think working remote is extremely valuable in times like, when you just need to sit down and get your shit done. You don't want people to bother you, right?
Yep.
For myself, it's like when I need to get creative, I found it really extremely hard to do it in the office when I have people walking all around me, right? I just needed to sort of isolate myself in an area where it's just like quiet. Even like running outside for like an hour, I found that was way more helpful, in sort of pumping out my creative juices than sitting in an office, just staring at the screen, maybe, browsing through YouTube, right? So, yeah, I mean, I see advantages in both sides. I think going forward, from what I've heard from some studios, at least in Vancouver, that working remote is going to be more of a regular thing. They're probably not going to sort of say, everybody just works fully remote like we do, but more arranged with things where, you have to come into the office maybe, twice a week. But, beyond that, you guys can work remote. And then other people that actually works off on the island, they live on the island or something like that, they're allowed to probably work remote for like 2-3 weeks, but have to come in for a couple times a month.
Hey guys, let's take a break and have a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Appfigures. Appfigures is all about giving game makers the tools they need to get more downloads and revenue. You may already know them for analytics and app store optimization. Now, Appfigures can help you track competitors, from how many downloads they're getting and how much money they're making to their audience demographics, and even which SDKs they use. Their competitor intelligence gives you great context. Say a competitor adds a new feature or was mentioned in the news. With Appfigures, you can see if that brought in more downloads. Got a great idea for an app or a game? With Appfigures, you can figure out how big the market is and how much money you could be making with it. And that's just scratching the surface. Whether you're growing your app or building a new one, Appfigures has the tools you need to reduce risk and get more downloads. You don't need a large budget or a data science degree to do this kind of stuff anymore. Appfigures has made it affordable and simple. On top of tools, Appfigures also provides a lot of guides and tutorials take you step by step through gaining more visibility with ASO and increasing your revenue by learning from your competitors. They just released a free guide on that, actually. So head over to appfigures.com, appfigures.com/on/gain dev unchained to try Appfigures for free. If you like it, then use our special code GDU3030 to get 30% off for the next 3 months. You're welcome. Yeah, so let's explore a couple of those. So first of all, the collaboration is key. I think it is still irreplaceable, regardless of the Zooms and all these digital whiteboard. It just doesn't feel the same yet. So I do think there is some relevance to having some kind of location for a lot of teams to kind of meet at if they need to. I also do agree that, you know, most companies are going to do hybrid where they require some days of the week. And I really do feel not all is going to do fully remote. I think that will be still proven difficult. The IP protection thing, I would love to kind of dig into that more with you guys. So a lot of the big companies are, of course, folding right now. Otherwise, they can't get things done. Obviously, they have hundreds of employees that have their own solutions. Companies have solutions like setting desktops, going through VPN, setting up all these like cloud computers. You know, these are solutions that are really born out of this pandemic that are, if anything, being accelerated to kind of make it work, which is great, right? Because I think once that system is up, they're going to keep utilizing it and not completely scrap it once the pandemic is over. So for that alone, that kind of feels like it's going to open up a lot of global talent. And I would love to kind of hear you guys more about that. So, you know, I think before the pandemic, the industry was moving. A lot of companies were moving towards more contract work and then full time for like a very core group, right? And I think that's kind of still continuing. So I wonder how much this opens up in terms of balancing the two. Are companies going to be, of course, you're going to hire more people that don't have to relocate, but are they more going into getting more contract freelancing work, just giving more people opportunity without having to fully embrace them into health benefits and all this stuff? I would love to kind of hear you guys' thoughts about that, because that was a big, I wouldn't say issue, but that was a direction that we were going in the game industry before. I want to see how that changing, exploding now and later. Why don't you go first, Jason?
For us, so we hire a lot of contract workers, but you know, going forward, what we realize is, you know, budget-wise, it's a lot more efficient if we sort of start to train them up and sort of bring them in-house. We have started to hire people for more sort of permanent positions where we can train them and sort of grow them within the studio in Shanghai. But still, like a majority of our art and our sort of trailer work and stuff like that is sort of outsourced. So yeah, it's not done internally. As for the security part, for us, it's not a big issue because we're not Ubisoft. We're not like really well known. I mean, it's fine if people know what we're doing. It's advertising for us, if anything. So, you know, even now, like our game is like just before at the brink, at the we're just about to go alpha in like a month, and we've already been talking about our game and what it is and what players are going to experience and all that. We don't hide anything, right? Because there's no point in us when we're not like World of Warcraft, where we need to like keep these secrets for a grand reveal, right? It's just we don't have anybody to reveal to right now. We just need to get people excited and want to come in and try out our game, right? So that's not a big issue. Yeah.
How about you, Ray?
Yeah, I hope we're not moving towards more contracting. I think the game industry is already volatile career enough. And so you take this moment to say, hey, because you're working remote, we shouldn't have you as a full-time employee. I don't know if I'm not too happy if that is the future, basically, I should say. Yeah.
Well, I would love to kind of hear more on that point, because like now globally companies have the pick of the crop. If the borders are not an issue anymore, right?
Sure.
You can hire anyone from anywhere, and now they've have that chance to work with you without having to relocate to the United States or Canada or wherever, right, where most of the jobs are. I don't know. I feel like they are going to be leaning more to why not? Like, unless it's like what Jason said, it's like the company sees an investment in that person. It's cheaper to train that person up. I feel like in most cases that is the case, than to kind of reteach someone something that someone else left. But I would love to kind of hear you guys' thoughts about that, because I think it is one of those issues that will be cropping up now that there are no borders now in the future, right?
Yeah, but this is like what you just said, right? Like, just the fact that somebody's in a different country working for you doesn't mean like, oh, they're not a full-time employee, right? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's probably more legal stuff and business stuff. You got to set up entities in all these different locations, right? So that like there's a cost to that. But like you said, like pulling somebody in and bringing them in, training them up, giving them a career path is way more favorable than just random disposable bodies, right? So I don't think like with this move remote, then it's all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, everybody's a contractor now. Like I don't see the straight line between those two things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless Jason, you have something to add to that.
I think also working remote is somewhat limited in terms of like area. Like for us, like all our designers are in Vancouver for specifically for communication reasons, and we need to be on the same time zone because we need to communicate often. So I think there's that to consider, because like some of our staff that's in France, I find it really hard to find the right time for us to be able to have meetings together. The time zone is a killer, right? So yeah.
And I think that's a good point. That's killing, but that's an issue for me too, right? Because I have teams in the West Coast, I have teams in Montreal, UK, and in Korea, right? And so getting everybody together is really difficult and impossible. Like somebody's going to lose out really badly, like no matter whichever configuration you want to do, if you want everybody to be able to get together. And so it's a real struggle, and it's much easier to do this communication and meetings when folks are in the same time zone, like for sure.
Yeah. I would love to kind of ask more about that. The time zone thing is a real issue. It's one of the reasons, I think, original reasons why everybody wanted to get everybody in one office to better communication. And then slowly before the pandemic, people were spreading out, and now completely, we have friends that are still in the United States time zone where they're like, hey, I'm just going to be in Big Bear for the next 6 months, and just hit me up then. So that's fine. But it does open up that time zone thing being a problem. How are your teams kind of circumventing around that, where, like you said, it is kind of impossible? He's like, dude, I don't wake up at 12 a.m. I can't meet with you. Everything has to be through email. or someone has to sacrifice? Like, what type of solutions are around that?
Or you do meetings in batches, right? Like
more
meetings.
Yeah, typical manager asking for more meetings. Okay, right.
Well, I'm not asking for them. Trust me, I'm not asking for them. But like, if you have to talk to folks, you got to talk to folks, right? So my days are usually, 7 a.m. meetings, and also 5 p.m. meetings. You know what I mean, right? Like that's my day, right? So, and you just have to make it work because the time and that's been the state. Like even before coronavirus, that has been the state. If I'm in the office in San Francisco, I still got to talk to the folks that are in Korea, right? So that's still an issue. But to make sure that everybody's on the same page, it's easy just to fly everybody to one location and do some sort of offsite, right?
Yeah.
But with coronavirus, it's that's just not that part of it. It's not happening, right?
It's not happening.
So you have to work extra hard at get like the team cohesion and the team communication.
So for you and your team, you do see after this is over, the flying back to one location to kind of sync up once in a while happening again. So that'll be the hybrid. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely huge advantages to doing that. You know what I mean? Like we did that. Unity does that for we have a hack week where everybody gets together and works on stuff in one big room in Copenhagen for like a week. Right. And there's huge advantages to doing that, to get to know people, get the bond with folks and work on interesting things. So I look forward to going back to at least being able to do that on the odd occasion.
Yeah. So you do want to be back in the office then. All right.
Not necessarily.
Just a little.
Well, that's the thing too. No, that's the thing too when people talk about like remote work, right? Having the ability to your office is now just a bunch of meeting rooms.
Yeah.
And then folks could be remote and then like, oh, I need to talk to Joe Blow about X, Y, and Z. Let's all get together at the office and talk together. Like you have the opportunity, you have the flexibility to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't think even though we're going to go more towards remote work, I don't think it's going to be 100% like you'd ever see your teammates ever again. Because I don't think that works. Right.
Yeah. Definitely hard. Well, Jason, I would love to kind of hear your thoughts about it. You've always had like a team over in Shanghai that you're always constantly communicating. What ways have that changed with the pandemic? Has that changed? I imagine, you had the kind of like a similar thing where your teams would fly to a location once in a while to sync up, or has it always been? Just once.
Like we had a lot of our Vancouver team go over to Shanghai. Let's say before like November or maybe earlier than that, October, November, in that before the whole coronavirus stuff. And then we visited the Shanghai team. We stayed there for like a week. And for that, it was mostly a lot of the team here never got to meet the team there. So it was more of
meet and greet.
Meeting, get to know who you've been talking to on Slack or, on Zoom, that deal. But in the same way, like I have meetings from, 9:30 in the morning to like 8:30 at night. Because Shanghai, they work with, when they get into the office, it's 6 p.m. here. So, so like I have meetings all day long. It just goes with, if you're going to have an international team, it's just part of that process, right? But originally what we were planning before this whole COVID thing broke out was that, I would go visit Shanghai like 2-3 times a year, right? Just to make sure everything's in sync and everybody, like we have that sort of face-to-face a bit. But we just haven't been able to do that since the whole COVID thing.
I see. So
I'll just add too about I meet with my Korean team at 5 p.m. usually most days, and they like I think that's a reasonable hour, but they still are like, oh man, this is kind of early. So,
yeah, right. Oh, someone's always complaining. Yeah.
But I feel that pain. I understand. Yeah.
So a little thing that Ray kind of mentioned, we all know, right? The industry has always been volatile. And at least in my career, I know you guys too have moved around for a job, right? Maybe more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. And I'm asking this question from for a perspective from employer and employee and manager, right? Now that the borders are down, now that people can have the freedom of like, I don't like where I'm at, see ya, and then open up another Zoom meeting, right? And it's like, I'm at my new job now. I just want to kind of explore that with you guys. Like, is too much? Like, is now it's so flipped now that being a manager, being an owner of a company, is it a real concern? Do we have to overly make our employees comfortable to make sure that now that they have so many choices that they are valuable? I wonder what that dynamic looks like right now, since everybody can, at least for a little while, at least for a little bit of this year, can switch jobs at a notice. Or is it just fine? Let me get let me hear your thoughts. Ray, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think there's some for us, like, I haven't really thought too much about this. I know in the beginning, a lot of folks were like, "Oh, I could just go to the Bahamas or somewhere and just chill there and work from there for like a couple months, right?" And like, as long as you don't tell anybody you're doing that, I think
just get a green screen.
you can actually get away with that, right? If you don't tell anybody, but if you do tell anybody, then there's all sorts of like tax, pay, organizational stuff that have to get set up in the location where you're at. So then it becomes like a real problem. Like, you know what I mean? So, and especially if you're like, hey, I want to go somewhere where your company doesn't have an entity set up, or like, are they really going to go through all that trouble just for you so you can be on the beach? Like, I don't think so. Right?
Yeah.
So,
but I'm also asking, before I throw it back to Jason, about like the reality of, is there a problem with too much choice? If seriously I'm not happy with you, Ray, I can switch up to another job next week without really changing my lifestyle anymore. Is that a real concern or not at all?
No, I think that's always the case though. Like at least in the places where there's game companies, right? Like if we're talking about the Bay Area, there is choice. Like folks can say, screw you, I want to go to this other game company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe if folks are in a little bit more a location with there's only one game studio or a few game studios, then maybe there's more of a concern for those places. Because like, hey, I could work from Thunder Bay, Ontario, and like and make video games anywhere, right? If remote work becomes more common. But yeah, I haven't really thought about that or too concerned about it.
All right,
being in the Bay Area, like,
engineers.
People can just quit at the drop of a dime, and they're getting hit up. They're getting hit up with jobs like every single day. So like, I don't think this is going to make matters worse or anything like that.
Well, I would love to hear your thought, Jason. It being a buyer's market, sort of, right? Is it what do you think? Is this a thing to think about, or is it just one of those? Okay.
I don't think so, especially not in the gaming industry. I think from my experience, people choose the gaming industry that they apply to because they like the games that they make. Or that's my experience from interviews and stuff, right? Especially like engineers and stuff, like they can get paid much better going to Google. They shouldn't have to go work at a game studio. Like a lot of the engineers that come and work at gaming studio are like hardcore gamers. They love games, right? And that's what they want to do. So they come and work there, right? And game designers, they love the game that we make. Artists love the style that we do. So that generally is the reason why they come and work with us. So I don't think it's because it's really the product, right? They want to be part of the product.
Yeah, I think there's overall loyalty in the game industry more than other industries. in terms of people just want to stick around?
The thing I would say is like I think it impacts the studios more if they embrace remote work. Like they would actually increase the pool of people they could recruit from.
Yeah, more talent.
So, so I see that as a good thing. Like if you look at it that way.
Okay. One of the last few questions I want to ask you guys, the 9 to 5 philosophy has been around since the Industrial Revolution, right? So obviously that's been broken down. I agree with you, Jason, that I think for games, especially or any creative job, is task driven more so than hourly. But also that raises a question with the hourly people too, with the contractors. It is a very odd equation where, we're not needing to do 8 hours. I have, as an example, I haven't heard too much of an issue where companies are running around. It's like, well, if they haven't done 8 hours today, maybe small semblance of that. But I would love to kind of hear you guys' either firsthand or through network experience. Like, has there been alarms about that particularly? Or is it just one of those things that people are going with the flow and suddenly, if you're not, unless it's for meetings, the 9 to 5 doesn't matter anymore unless you just get your work done. You can go run or take a break or walk your dog at any point. Just get the work done. It doesn't matter what you do with your time.
Yeah, for us, it's definitely the work that's important. Even during our scrums and sprints, it's more about the feature and the progress of the feature within the sprint team as a whole than what each individual is doing or what they did that day, because that's not really important. We're trying to push the product along, right? So yeah. I don't think that's that important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that wasn't important. That was not important even when we were in the office, right? Like if you're in the office, you had to go to the doctor's appointment, or you had to go walk a dog, or you had to go to the gym and do a run or whatever in the middle of the workday. Yeah, so what? Who cares, right? As long as you get the work done, right?
Yeah, even when I was in an office, I used to take like half an hour coffee breaks here.
I like everybody. You gotta kill time in the office. Yeah. But you get. I think at the same time, I have to acknowledge, right? I think we around this table right here, we're pretty blessed with the places we work at where that isn't a concern. But I know I've been at places where you basically have to get a doctor's note for everything that you do. And it is, you are being watched. So I wonder, at least I want to love to kind of hear you guys' opinion for our friends that are not as fortunate, where time was always kind of like, there's a hallway monitor all the time.
Brett, I'm just going to say this, and like, I'm sure those companies exist. I did work at one when I first started in the industry, where they literally were like, you have to be here at 9:30 in the morning every day.
Yeah.
You have to be here. Mm-hmm. And I was there at 4 a.m. the night before, and I came in like at 10 the next day. And the dude was like, what is this about you coming in late? And I'm like, bro, like I was here at 4 a.m. Like, right. So, and so like, I know those companies exist. I pray that they don't exist much longer, and I want them to burn to the ground. And I'll say that. I'll say that without any reservations for saying that. I think those are terrible places to work. You should not be there. Yeah. If you are not a slave, screw that place. Right. And it's easy for me to say that in whatever privileged position I'm in. But I was there. I was in a place that was terrible, and I looked for a new job. Like straight up, like I was like, I need to get out of here. Right. So like I empathize. But if that's still 50% of the industry or even 60% of the industry, like that's really, really bad. Yeah. It just should not be the case. Right.
Yeah. I would love to, I would think that because of the pandemic and how we're shifted to work this way, that eliminated that part. Well, I mean, how realistic is that? Well, I got to see you in Zoom meeting at 9:30 now. Like how exactly does a manager keep up with that in a digital workplace now? So I think by default it's killed, unless Jason, you think it's still remnants of that lurking in some of these companies, because I'm sure you've had that experience once. I've had it.
I actually haven't. I was very lucky.
Yeah, you're lucky. Yeah.
I mean, I started my running the game industry at Relic, and Relic has always been pretty relaxed about stuff like that. Yeah, definitely in situations like that, if I was there to like even if I was there till like 11 p.m. And they would say, yeah, sleep in, come in whenever whatever, they wouldn't hassle me if I came in at 10 or even 11 the next day, right? So yeah, I mean, I've been blessed. I've never experienced that, but I mean, I have heard stories, right? Even like horrendous overtime stories at EA and stuff while I was working at Relic. It's just stuff that I've never experienced. So I don't know. Yeah.
Well, you actually bring up a good point. Like French culture was a big talking point up till everyone's at home now. Does this kind of eliminate that factor of the industry? That bad mark on us. I mean, how exactly are we asking people to crunch?
Crunch is gonna be worse, dude.
Is it worse now?
It's probably worse now, man.
Is it self-driven, or is it most like how do people keep? Is it just overly tasked on stuff?
I think it's self-driven. I think people are generally working more because they're home. There's no commute, right?
There's nothing to do.
And then on top of that, with all the other things competing, like, if you have kids at home and if you have whatever your situation is at home, you probably, and you still need to get the game done. I'm sure people are working harder and crunching more, like 100% sure.
Oh, we'll love to kind of hear your thoughts too, Jason. Do you think that will be the new crunch culture in this in this type of world?
I don't know. Like,
are we gonna have EA wives out of this?
like
staying up too late.
Even at Relic, I remember, we did have overtime once in a while here and there for like a week. But then, if there's overtime, there's always other time to make up for the overtime, where they give you extra days off and stuff like that, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like for me, like I feel like I'm not working overtime right now. Because we have to, or I have to. I'm just doing it because my office is here, and I just have stuff to do, right? Yeah. Nobody's telling me to do it. I don't have to do it. I just like head, right?
I think that's one of the things that Ray's saying is that it's so convenient now, and we're naturally, I don't know. I think at least the senior and lead guys, it's very easy for us to not turn that part off. It's like, hey, I didn't get to this earlier. I guess I'll just do it now. Right. So I wondered if that, I don't know, is that like going to be I'm teasing about EAY. Is that going to be an article by Jason Schreier later? Is that going to be a thing? Or is it, what do you think? Like, how bad would that get before it becomes a problem? Or is it just one of those things that everyone's going along with because we literally can't go outside right now?
I think that's just self-control. It's like being an alcoholic, right? It's like, if you can't, you got to find control. You got to find balance in your life, right?
Yeah. I would say there's no fellow workers to guilt trip you into staying at the office, right? So if you decide like, oh, I'm going to stop working at 6, like there's nobody looking at you cwery, wondering why you stopped.
No
working,
pressure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but I think most of it's going to just be self-imposed, and we're going to be slightly less productive, and thus going to make up for it by working more.
One last question before we end this one. The social aspect, right? Unlike Ray, I don't like Zoom meeting all the time to talk about follow-ups and stuff. And it doesn't have the same appeal of me talking to you, getting coffee or some water, some snacks, right? I haven't been able to kind of find that hole just yet in this pandemic. I would love to kind of hear you guys, how you guys navigated around to getting some kind of that feeling back of talking to your friends in an office. I haven't heard any solutions. I mean, there are some doing more beer Friday Zoom meetings, right? But it's another meeting. It's like, I don't know if I want to embrace that as being the solution with more Zoom meetings, but I would love to kind of go around the table here to kind of hear what has worked, what you think is in the pipeline that can work, or is it just one of those things? Yeah, that's irreplaceable.
So yeah, I totally understand that. I feel the same way. I think one of the things that I missed a lot, and I feel is missing is with especially working remote international teams is culture.
Yeah.
Game studios are. I don't know about EA, Ubisoft. They're more of a assembly line, but places like Relic that are more of a smaller sort of studio, they have a distinct sense of culture within that studio. It makes it, and that's one of the reasons why the studio itself becomes very sticky. People don't like to leave because they love where they work, right?
Yeah.
And that is very hard to develop when everybody's spread apart.
Yeah.
Right? So some of the things that we have talked about is have like, because we're a game studio, and people are passionate about games, we have talked about like game nights and stuff like that. It happens a lot, in game studios, and that's sort of how you build these cultures. At Relic, they used to have a lot of like a Warhammer painting and all that kind of stuff because Relic's pretty well known for things like that. For us, we can have game nights over Zoom, right? Whether it's playing Among Us or
Yeah.
any other sort of social games where you get to know who you're working with a bit better, but also sort of dive further into your craft and just sort of have that discussion with other people in your studio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. What fun you having, Ray? What are you doing for your team?
Dude, like you said, beer Fridays, man. It's beer every day, bro.
Yeah. Every day.
Like that's pretty much what we did. A lot of virtual happy hours. And I'm doing virtual happy hours with some friends outside of work as well, and that's kind of keeping it interesting. But I do get with you. There's some days where I'm like, you know what? I've been on Zoom all day.
Yeah.
I am not going to this happy hour. I'll see y'all later. Right. And then I just do it on my phone or something and then go outside or something, do something else. Air. Right. Yeah. So there is definitely Zoom fatigue, but I haven't seen anything better than that for team bonding. Like I like the idea of games and things like that, or just, but most of what we're doing is getting the Zoom and just shoot the shit. Right.
Yeah. I think that is the one missing factor that is leading a lot of people back to the office. Like what you said, Jason, the culture part, the best parts of the office have always been not about the work, because I get work done faster at home in isolation, like you said, right? But the office is the best for gathering of people. And in some cases, brainstorming ideas, right? Just any activities that revolves around away from our desk, I love. And
that is why I don't like open offices, right? You can't focus if you actually had a office with a closed door at the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think for that reason alone, most companies, if they can already have a location, is going to use that space as a building that culture space. And because since we've been through this almost a year now and I haven't heard any great ideas aside from happy hours and playing some games here and there, but still walking away kind of empty from it. It's like, oh, okay. I interacted with my screen again. It's like my eyes. I would love to kind of see everybody's eye test after this, because I know my eyes have gone to shit. But all I do is look at monitors now all day. But I think with you guys, I hope there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And if anything, that hybrid approach is some version of this and that. I guess my last question to you guys is, what are the biggest changes if tomorrow comes and everybody has permission to get back to the office? What do you feel like the big percentage of the industry is going, and how is that changing either creative output or everything? Like what has this pandemic taught us about how we work and how we should work? Just final thoughts. Why don't we go to you, Jason?
Well, I think companies in general have feared allowing people to work from home in general, and I think this pandemic has, and having people work from home have sort of, basically taught management and a lot of people that it actually doesn't really affect that much in terms of workflow. In some cases, maybe it might improve. And you may be able to find talent for specific areas of work that you're looking for. That's a much more sort of easily filled if you're looking for people remotely than just someone that can come into the office all the time. So I don't, I believe remote work is here to stay. But at the same time, I believe there's huge advantages of having a shared space where you can come in and sort of congregate and, talk and socialize and stuff like that. So, I'm really hoping personally, like the industry develops in a way where they create space for both. They have that space where, people can meet, and they have that space. They also allow people to come kind of work from home. Like for us, that sort of shared space is usually at like a restaurant or at a coffee shop where, me and a bunch of our designers sort of get together and socialize. That's what we used to do before COVID. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm looking forward to sort of getting back to that because that was really fun.
Mm-hmm. So Ray, you still like being holed up in your office? What's your thing? No, what's your deal?
I'm kind of with Jason. I think what will happen is, I think a lot of the companies and the management and all of that have noticed like, oh, the sky is not falling, and it's not that big of a deal. I think you probably will see more people doing partial weeks at home and partial weeks in the office. I think that'll probably be the biggest change. I don't know if companies will go full on. You could be remote anywhere in the world, and we'll work with you. But at the very least, I think there would be some folks that be like, you know what, like I just want to stay at home for a couple of days a week.
Right.
So.
Stay at home, quote unquote, actually in the Bahamas, right? So. That's the biggest thing I learned from this episode. Yeah,
if it's a couple of days a week, it's really hard to be in the Bahamas a couple of days a week. Yeah. Unless you do it like Friday and Monday, so you fly.
Yeah. Well, every other week, I'm sick, dude. I can't make it.
Fly to the Bahamas Thursday night. But,
there's something to that. I think I'm jealous of the friends that actually took advantage of that and been spending the last 6 months somewhere in the mountains and just still doing work. Like out of this pandemic, that's the one thing. I mean, technically I could still do it, but that's the one thing is like, I should have done that for a couple months and just see what that felt like, breathing. Well, I mean, I was in Orange County, right? So all those wildfires were happening. You too, right? It would have been nice to be away from all that. This past year.
Well, the places I would have ran to were on fire, so, like earlier last year.
Good places. We got to stay where Jason is, or in Vancouver. You guys seem to be just fine.
Yeah.
Over everything. This is like Canada was just showing how modeled country can behave during this pandemic. It's like, wow.
I wouldn't go that far. I will go that far because Toronto is going crazy with the.
Is it going crazy right now? Oh my God! I need to keep up with the news. This past year is just to the last day. Just something was happening in the country. Yeah. But anyways, I want to thank you guys both for coming on and giving your thoughts. I wanted this to be the first Roundtable News topic because I do feel this is the first year, finally, a part of the year where we'll be transitioning to what the next thing is. It could be more of the same thing, but people will have permission getting back in the office, and it was great to kind of have you guys talk and share your experience and opinions about what that could be. So thank you both for coming on and everything. So without further ado, see you guys all next week.